Good morning, everybody. I'm Sue McKay. I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. We are so happy you are here on this very special day. We have a number of people that are online. We're going to wait for a few minutes to see how many there are, and then we'll tell you, so you won't feel like you're in this sanctuary with just a few people. I'm going to start out with morning announcements. We've got a lot going on, as we always do. Today, we're restarting the Spirit of Drumming Circle. They have a new facilitator, Jim Shimko. He'll join Lori and Leanne to lead the group, and that will be starting around 11:30. The Chalice Side Chat, which we have every Tuesday, is happening once again at 7 p.m. Sue Henry McKenzie is the person that's running that. The plate, by the way, for those of you who wish to make a donation or you have your pledge to pay, there's a basket right over there. Please use it. And any money that's undesignated, meaning just thrown in there, that money is going to be split during the month of July with the Mabel Wadsworth Center. Their mission is to provide health care using a feminist model focused on sexual and reproductive health through education, advocacy, and clinical services. And boy, could they use our help now. For those who are excited about the upcoming midterm elections, on Wednesday, July 13th, Musan is going to be working with the League of Women Voters of Maine to do a training on how to sign people up, register people to vote. And that's going to happen on Zoom at noon on July 13th. Inside your e-news is the Zoom address. And if you need more information, see me after the service if you can find me. For those of you who don't know about Amplifone, right? Not really. Ampion, renewable energy. We have an agreement with Ampion. If you want to be able to use solar power, but you don't want to have solar panels or can't afford solar panels, this is a way to reduce your electric bill by about 15%. And the church gets $200 for each person that signs up. And we've got well over $2,000 already. But if you haven't signed up and you'd like to, see Valerie Carter. Valerie's right there waving her hand. We continue to support the Ukrainian relief efforts. Also in your e-news are various locations online where you can help with that. One of them being the UUSC Emergency Relief Fund for Ukraine Response. And I'm sure there are a ton others that I have missed, but hopefully that's giving you a taste. I said drumming. That was the first one I did. Absolutely did not want to miss out on drumming. Okay, we'll start now with our introit, Rissa. For those who may not be familiar, that song is entitled Standing on the Side of Love. I'm going to give you some information about our speaker today before the chalice lighting, because he's going to light the chalice for us. David Weeda spent most of his life as an activist in Kansas City, Missouri in the 80s. And now he's very involved down in Bucksport. He's active in the group Solidarity Bucksport and was one of the founders of the Bucksport Pride events. So David, if you want to come up and light the chalice while I give the reading. It's entitled Living with Pride by Lori Gorgas Laban. We light our chalice flame for those who lived their lives in closets of shame, for those who furtively visited the bars where nobody knew their name, for the Stonewall riot and the fierce trans women who fought for the plague which still takes far too many, too young, too soon. So many gone, so many never lived to see out gay kids singing on TV, out gay people serving in the military, marriage equality, families formed by intention. We light our chalice flame for all these and for all our siblings of the rainbow, surviving, living life out in the open with pride. Blessed be. Our opening words this morning are a little bit longer than they normally would be. My opening words this morning are meant to provide some context around the significance of the life, death, and legacy of Charlie Howard, a young gay man murdered in Bangor. For those in the sanctuary, we have provided a copy of a pamphlet that briefly tells Charlie's story. However, I want to reframe this annual remembrance by taking the state motto of Charlie's home state, New Hampshire, where he grew up and attended Portsmouth schools. That motto is live free or die. And our state's motto, Derigo, which translates to I lead. Charlie was bullied his whole life. He just wanted to be free, to be himself in a world that was not ready to accept him. The local Portsmouth newspaper, Foster's Daily Democrat, ran a story on 7/1/2021 with several quotes that I've included in my remarks. Robert Lister was Charlie's teacher for 4 years. Quote, I was a special education teacher and Charlie was in my class. He had some learning challenges, and back then, schools didn't mainstream students the way they do now. I knew Charlie well, and I liked him. I was his teacher, his advocate, his mentor, and sometimes his protector. He was a small, handsome, blonde young man, said Lister. He was very caring and never angry. He had a lot of potential. He was a risk taker and a pioneer. He never went to prom or even to his own graduation because his family's fear for his safety. His grave has no marker for fear of reprisals at that time. I believe that had he lived, he would have been a prominent advocate and leader. What a shame that was never possible, end quote. Charlie didn't move to Bangor until 6 months before his untimely death, but he found friendship and caring at the Unitarian Church in Bangor. It was there he enjoyed his last meal before walking across town to pick up his mail. Bangor was wrapping up a week-long celebration of its sesquicentennial. They called it the River City Festival, and all of downtown was awash with revelry. The play, The Music Man, had been performing nightly. I was there enjoying the celebration that evening, and after learning the horrifying news of Charlie's murder, I remembered these lines from the play. Friend, either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster indicated. Trouble Oh, we got trouble right here in River City. Unlike the storyline from the play, Fango's troubles were frighteningly real. Charlie, unable to run from his pursuers, 3 teenage boys, fell to the sidewalk suffering from an asthma attack. Charlie, whose favorite song was entitled "I Am What I Am," would spend the last few minutes of his life gasping for air and pleading with his attackers that he could not swim. They picked him up, tossed him over the railing of the State Street Bridge into the darkness of the Kenduskeag Stream, where he drowned. Charlie lived his life of 23 years trying to express his freedom to be the person he was. And though he died that night on July 7th, 1984, the leadership potential his high school teacher mentioned is still inspiring people who refuse to accept injustice. Charlie, in essence, leads on through the mission of the LGBTQ+ and other civil rights organizations that advocate for equal rights for all marginalized people throughout Maine and New Hampshire. Live free or die? Dare or go? Thank you, Charlie, for daring to be who you were. Blessed be. Next, we have an opening song by Linda Kaler. Not sure which title. No? Yes? Maybe? Okay, maybe I've got an older script. Should we do the opening song and then do the children's story? Yes. All right.
Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen. Ooh. And that's not by me.
Okay. Thank you, Linda and Marissa. We are doing children's story next. David has a story for all ages. David Weeda.
When I was asked to be here for the service today and participate in such many fun and glorious and heartfelt ways, I realized this would be my chance to sing a lullaby to the children. I don't have my own children, but I have many friends' children. And through the years, after I heard this song, which is written by a Unitarian Universalist minister, Fred Small, I heard Fred perform it in Kansas City, and then my group in Kansas City produced 2 concerts by a wonderful a cappella group called the Flirtations, and their arrangement of this song moved me to always use it in every service that I ever did for anything, because everybody needs a lullaby in their hip pocket, right? So this is Everything Possible by Fred Small. We've cleared off the table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight,
at the end of your knockabout day, as the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea. I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind. Some grow in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
So I think that covers it. Please take a moment of reflection as Rissa plays the Spirit of Life. Our reading this morning is Witness and Pride by Eli Clare. Pride works in direct opposition to internalized oppression. The latter provides fertile ground for shame, denial, self-hatred, and fear. The former encourages anger, strength, and joy. To transform self-hatred into pride is a fundamental act of resistance. People who have lived in shame and isolation need all the pride we can muster, not to mire ourselves in a narrowly defined identity politics, but to sustain broad-based rebellion. And likewise, we need a witness to all our histories, both collective and personal. Yet we also need to remember that witness and pride are not the same. Witness pairs grief and rage with remembrance. Pride pairs joy with a determination to be visible. Witness demands primary adherence to and with history. Pride uses history as one of its many tools. Sometimes witness and pride work in concert, other times not. We cannot afford to confuse, merge, or blur the two. Blessed be. Linda and Rista will share some special music for us now.
We are great boulders of love in that stream of hate. We stem the flow of fear that they propagate. We stand shoulder to shoulder to shift the flow, creating space where peace can grow. Grounded in love, we won't be swept away. We will persist, growing bolder day by day, till we all know we're joined as one on this small planet circling round the sun. We are great boulders of love in that stream of hate. We stem the flow of fear that they propagate. We stand shoulder to shoulder to shift the flow, creating space where peace can grow. Grounded in love, we won't be swept away. We will persist, growing bolder day by day, till we all know we're joined as one on this small planet circling round the sun. We are great boulders of love in that stream of hate. We stem the flow of fear that they propagate. We stand shoulder to shoulder to shift the flow, creating space where peace can grow. We are great boulders of love.
Now it is my great pleasure, or our great pleasure, to introduce David Weeda as our speaker this morning. Thank you, David.
Hello, allies. I don't always get to start that way. Sometimes I'm standing in front of a crowd that I have no prior knowledge of what their status might be as an ally to this movement of LGBTQIA plus pride. But I'm an experienced Unitarian Universalist. I joined the UU congregation in Kansas City in 1989. And from that moment in my life, the UU Church has been the strongest foundation supporting me as an activist that I ever could have imagined. So I walk into this space this morning and see new faces, but the very familiar faces of UU people who bring their allyship, even shining out from behind these masks that we're wearing. I couldn't be here with you this morning if you weren't allies, because we're going to talk about the importance of finding our voices. Everybody in this room, we each have a voice, and we each need to reevaluate regularly how we use that voice as we walk through this world. When I was invited to do the service, I thought, oh, I have several weeks to write down my thoughts and come up with everything I'd like to impart to you. But true to form, as has always been the case ever since I started presenting things in front of crowds, I procrastinate quite beautifully. So last night, when I sat down in my bed in Bucksport, Maine, my little apartment, I had all these archival documents surrounding me that I knew I could draw on as resources for what I thought I should have to say to you this morning. But I'm so glad that I told Laurie weeks ago that I purposely would wait until the last moment, because the way things are happening in our culture today, if you turn on the news, within 5 minutes, you can hear something that you say, I need to talk about that. That's important. And that happened for me, not only last night, but this morning when I turned on Facebook. There was an incredible poem a friend had sent me that her 19-year-old daughter had written, and I read through it and I realized I have the wrap up for my sermon this morning. So that will come at the end. But at the beginning, I want to say that I am channeling Charlie Howard this morning. Truth be told, in all my years of activism, I channeled Charlie many times. I was in Kansas City when Charlie was murdered, but I was a fervent reader of any news from the LGBTQIA+ community. And I learned of his death early on as a news report. And it struck me at that time when I was 27 years old. I'm sorry, no, Charlie was 23. I am 1 year and 9 months older. So I was not quite 25. I'm probably glad that I didn't realize the trajectory that my life would take after Charlie's death and the activism that I was already engaged in. But in retrospect, Charlie's death, Charlie's martyrdom, the significance of his life and leaving this planet in the time and way in which he did, I have been channeling Charlie my entire life as an activist. And that's what I'm trying to do today. So this is stream of consciousness for the most part. I jotted down some notes. I have a lot of readings that I've included. I'm watching the clock, and if I used everything I brought with me today, we would be here until 1:30. So I'm picking and choosing, all in the notion of conveying how each of us has something to bring to this movement as we move into a future that will require us to be activists. At Bucksport Pride this year, we launched the month of June with a movie, a documentary movie that was made about the work that I did with many, many other good folks in Kansas City from 1988. They covered the years 1988 till 1993 in this movie. That was the period when Kansas City was suddenly finding itself in the fight for non-discrimination laws. It was instigated by the city itself. The city's human relations deputy director called the ACT UP phone line. Everybody remember ACT UP, AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, founded by Larry Kramer in New York City. Very proud of the fact that Kansas City had a chapter of ACT UP that we started in 1988. In early 1989, the deputy director of the municipal human relations department called the ACT UP phone line and said, I think that somebody from ACT UP, maybe a couple of people, should come and deliver testimony at the town hall, city hall, on behalf of an ordinance that has been introduced by the Human Relations Department. And that was to include HIV status as one of the protected classes in the existing civil rights, non-discrimination laws in the city. We said yes, of course we would do that. So my buddy John Barnett and I, we were the writers of the ACT UP newsletter, and that's where the Mike Bates had found us and realized that we might have some worthy testimony to offer. So we took off our ACT UP Silence Equals Death t-shirts and put on what I came to call my City Hall drag. which I was constantly changing in and out of those two uniforms for the next 7 or 8 years, it seems like. We went down to City Hall with prepared testimony. I walked into the hearing room, and I was shocked to see faces of people that I knew from a very different chapter of my life at that moment. And that was folks I recognized from my Saturday morning demonstrating at Planned Parenthood, where I was one of a good dozen or so pro-choice advocates who were there specifically to act as a buffer zone between the people who were intent on discouraging women from pursuing whatever health care they were coming to Planned Parenthood for, belittling them, spitting on them, screaming at them, begging them to not kill their babies. I was an advocate for their need to have services and was very proud and honored to be there every Saturday morning. So I recognized these faces, and they were there because I learned there was an ordinance being discussed in the same hearing to limit noise produced by mechanical means like megaphones, because that's what those folks would use every Saturday. And there was a move in the neighborhood of Planned Parenthood to quiet their Saturday mornings down and not have them screaming such horrible things over a megaphone. So when they saw me, my guess was that they thought I was there to speak on behalf of that noise ordinance. So they were quite shocked when Mike Bates said that they were now going to discuss a new law that was being introduced to protect HIV status from discrimination, and that there were some people to give testimony from ACT UP Kansas City, and I stood up. What they saw was this person who they knew was a gay man who was there Saturday mornings on behalf of women's right to choose. Suddenly, the light bulb went off over all these anti-choice heads. Oh my gosh, here's the same guy that we see every Saturday and are in conflict with, and now they are pursuing non-discrimination based on HIV status. We delivered our testimony. We walked out into the rotunda of City Hall. Mike Bates came up and thanked us, said it was just right, thought that the committee would pass it off to the full council for a vote. And then he said something that we didn't expect, and that is, what would you guys think about perhaps, what do you think? Should we put sexual orientation into this same bill and see if it flies? Well, I looked at my buddy, John, the founder of ACT UP, and we said, yes, Mike, we think that's a brilliant idea. It's wonderful. Let's go for gay rights in Kansas City. That was spring of 1989. It hasn't stopped for me since. Working as an advocate for the LGBTQIA community and specifically for legislative reasons has put me in a life that has put me in touch with my own identity and that of all of the lovely people that jump on these issues. One of those people was Shanna Bellows, our Secretary of State, who came to Bucksport on June 2nd and actually honored me with an introduction before I brought people into the movie at the Alamo Theater. I'm raising the issue of the movie, the Ordinance Project, because you, the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor, provided some underwriting for that film at Bucksport Pride, along with the 3 other UU churches that I call the Bucksport Square, that I can pick and choose where I want to go on a Sunday morning to be in the UU congregation. But the Castine Church, the Belfast Church, the Ellsworth Church, and you all were significant underwriters this year for Bucksport Pride. Last year, I got underwriting from Ellsworth and Castine, but knowing we would have a bigger celebration this year, we thought, let's branch it out, and I would be happy as a UU, let me pull together a collaborative effort, and we did that. Drew helped me a lot, and we got significant funding from all 4 churches, so that not only did you help us underwrite the entire production of the film, but just like last year, the UU churches provided all the funding for the free pizza and free root beer that we handed out at Pride. And that is no small thing. This year, I said I've probably been to 35 Pride events. And to be able to feed your crowd without them throwing any money towards the food itself is a soulful project. Thank you for allowing us to give food away at the Bucksport Pride event. And that encourages the crowd to throw that $20 bill in the bucket and not ask for any change. So we fund Pride through total donations, And whatever's left over as profit, we distributed last year $500 to the student group at Bucksport High School and to the student group at the Reach, our alternative high school in Bucksport. I anticipate a similar amount will be done for both schools again this year. And we've already talked about if there's anything left beyond that, we would make a national donation, I hope, to the Trevor Project, but that's not decided yet. But there are so many worthy things that we could put that money to as a result of soliciting donations from the crowd. We had about 400 people both last year and this year. And I can't help but imagine how proud Charlie Howard would be of the fact that not only Bucksport, but Ellsworth, Bangor, of course, Belfast, Stockton, or Stonington, so many towns, Bar Harbor certainly. Down East Maine and the Bangor region are full of people who understand the importance of pride. Early in my activism in the late 80s, I got to experience a workshop with a woman named Suzanne Farr. And she inspired me with this book that she wrote, which is called Homophobia, a Weapon of Sexism. On the day that I stopped reacting to attacks and gave my time instead to visioning, this simple germinal question came forth for the workshops. What will the world be like without homophobia in it? For everyone, female and male, whatever sexual identity. Simple though the question is, it was at first shocking because those of us who work in the anti-violence movement spend most of our time working with the damaging negative results of violence and have little time to vision. It is sometimes difficult to create a vision of a world we have never experienced. But without such a vision, we cannot know clearly what we are working toward in our social change work. From the question, answer led to answer until a whole appeared of our collective making, from one workshop to another. Here are some of the answers women have given. The question again, what will the world be like without homophobia in it? Kids won't be called tomboys or sissies. They'll just be who they are, able to do what they wish. People will be able to love anyone, no matter what sex. The issue will simply be whether or not she/he, and you can tell this was written in 1988, I could edit on the spot, she, he, them, other, is a good human being, compatible and loving. Affection will be opened up between women and men and others, women and women, men and men, and it won't be centered on sex. People won't fear being called names if they show affection to someone who isn't a mate or a potential mate. If affection is opened up, then isolation will be broken down for all of us, especially for those who generally experience little physical affection, such as unmarried and older people. Women will be able to work whatever jobs we want without being labeled masculine. There will be less violence if men do not feel they have to prove and assert their manhood. Their desire to dominate and control will not spill over from the personal to the level of national and international politics and the use of bigger and better weapons to control other countries. People will wear whatever clothes they wish, with the priority being comfort, rather than display of femininity or masculinity. There will be no gender roles. I used to read that at least once a month, sitting on my desk as I worked for the Human Rights Project in Kansas City, which was a paid position. Out of the work that we did organizing the community around that ordinance that I mentioned, came the notion of it had to be a working job for whoever was going to educate and build the community to support this campaign. So what a joy to suddenly fall into this line of work, which kept me occupied for 6.5 years with a salary, never enough, but the contributions were great. I'm getting the wave that I should be wrapping up. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. So this, as I said, was going to be stream of consciousness. So look out. I don't even know what I'm going to do myself. But when Suzanne just reminded me that we would all be free to wear whatever we like, the butterfly is my totem animal. That is my spirit animal. And I bought this for last year's Bucksport Pride. So, you know, a bride doesn't want to just wear a wedding dress once, right? So I decided this morning that it was time for my butterfly suit. And underneath it, I have my Human Rights Project shirt. No one is free until we all are free. Covered with buttons. The two most important for me are this year's Pride button, because it was a great success again. And then I can't see which one, this one, silence equals death. Sort of the political statement and mantra of ACT UP. And I apply that to every situation that I come into. If we don't talk about this stuff, we don't make progress. In the case of LGBTQIA plus equality and rights and survival, when we stop talking about it and take it off the table, it's horrible, and it does lead to death. Florida, a perfect example. They're trying to tell us we don't say gay, right? Well, my response that day when they put that out was just a post on Facebook. I typed the word gay about 20 times and sent it with love, you know, gay, gay, gay. So I'm standing here with my iconic butterflies, and it makes me feel like I could tell what is a cute joke, and I've told it several times over the last several years during Pride, and that is, you know, when you walk into a gay bar, why is it that you see so many men in those bars standing around like this? Well, the answer is, it is just too crowded for them to stand around like this. When I left Kansas City in 1999, after completing as much work as I could possibly have done in those years working for the issue in Kansas City, I turned 40 in April of '99 and decided, after reading it on a bumper sticker, that I should not postpone joy. I was a single activist. Nobody wanted to date me because I was just too involved in the work. I can't tell you how many times I had a first date that I thought went splendidly, and the next time I talked with that individual, they would say, well, you know, I'm not really out to my family and I can't really be seen with you anywhere, or some other reason as to why a very out gay activist in Kansas City, Missouri was not their choice for dating material. So in 1999, I decided I would take a cross-country trip for a year just to see the country. Well, you don't start a cross-country trip in Kansas City. You wouldn't know which way to go first. I was lucky to have spent the summer of 1988 out on Cape Cod when I was 29 in 1988. And I tell people that I put a map on the wall. I wanted to spend a summer on the seashore before I turned 30. So I put the map on the wall, I put the blindfold, stepped back, put on the blindfold, had the dart in my hand. Then I ran up to that map and I very purposely pulled my mask, yes. Blindfold, that's the word. This is a mask, that's a blindfold. Pulled the blindfold off and stuck that dart in the heart of Provincetown out on Cape Cod. So that is the Mecca for gay adventurers, right? Provincetown, a very supportive community for years and generations of supporting and encouraging the bohemian lifestyle that has existed on Cape Cod and specifically in Provincetown for years. So remember, in 1988, the AIDS epidemic was really raging. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in food service in Kansas City. I end up in Provincetown for that summer, and I can't tell you how that absolutely changed my life. I was surrounded by queer people and their allies from all over the world, sitting on the benches on Commercial Street, right on Cape Cod Bay, having conversations about how do we live? How do we survive this, being the HIV/AIDS plague? Conversations around how do we have sex now? How do we do this to survive, maintain our dignity, maintain our entire life as the world is watching us being attacked by this disease, and the response of so much of the world was a painful, often not hesitating denial of our existence, our lives, our opportunities to love, our opportunities to form community, our opportunities to simply survive. So I took that summer of 1988, where I'm very proud to say I survived by playing my bagpipes on Macmillan Wharf 3 hours a day, an hour and a half in the morning. Then I would ride my bicycle out to Herring Cove Beach. I would take my swimming suit off and I would swim naked in the Atlantic Ocean every single day. Then I would come back into Provincetown at 5 o'clock that evening and play for another hour and a half for the whale watch boats to come and go for the end of the day. That's what I did to earn my keep in Provincetown for that summer. So conversing with people from all over the world about the situation of gay rights, gay survival, learning to swim in the ocean, not having one care at all about shedding my clothes on that beautiful Cape Cod beach with everybody else naked around me. My ideas were formulated very easily about how you let yourself go in the world that is open to you for all the possibilities. And you can be everything possible. Thank you, Fred Small. You can be whoever you want to be. Thankfully for me and Charlie Howard in my heart, this was 1988, he was gone. I visualized Charlie often as I made decisions around my activism and other choices in my life. Thank you, Charlie, for reminding me that life is unpredictable, it's short. We should love ourselves first so that we can effectively love others. And what a joy to stand here in Charlie's Bangor congregation and talk about the fact that finally in this world, out of necessity again, because of all of the oppression that's being meted out in so many directions, it is crucial for all of us to grab onto that notion of we do with our lives the most incredible good work we can, and that's all that's left behind when we are done, is what we have done to love others, to love our own lives through that process. And I'm going to wrap it up because it's close. If you will give me a couple minutes, I'd still like to read that poem that I discovered this morning. Thank you. Whoops. I don't know why I thought I had to unplug my mic or disconnect my microphone. I think I can just leave it here, can't I, Ben? I'm trying to go for my phone here where I've copied this poem down. This goes hand in hand with the fact that I was over in Augusta on July the 4th for the rally that was put on to demonstrate in support of retaining legal and accessible and safe abortions. I was thrilled with the crowd, which was predominantly young people. And I spoke to them as an old veteran, and they gave me every reason to believe that we're in good hands, this next generation. These young people, they identify as every possible fluid of gender and sexual orientation identity. They proudly understand that it is all connected. The dots can never be separated. We're doing this work because it's all for the same good cause of why we must do this work. This morning, I turned on my Facebook page and my friend Sherry posted this poem by her 19-year-old daughter. She just wrote it and posted it on July 1st. At a time when it feels overwhelming to imagine my future and the future of my kids, my grandkids, and their kids, I want to make a call not to your political party or belief system, but a call to your humanity, your heart, and your soul. I want you to take a moment and really feel for that muscle beneath your ribs. Feel for that sweet energy pulsing throughout your body. Feel for the energy of those around you, the people you love, and just sit in it. Read this post while you sit in that feeling. I am making this call today for us to live a bit more passionately and gracefully human. We may walk this earth in search of wealth, purpose, success, or love. But at the end of the day, the only thing that will follow you in death is your humanity and how it felt. While we often find pleasure in chasing these things, we are most human in the simple acts. Hugging your dad, kissing a baby, maybe holding your pet after a long week at work, or sitting with friends on the couch, even just sipping your coffee alone on the porch. You know what I'm talking about. These acts feel like the purest form of being human. Humanity feeds off a connection, empathy, and kindness. With that in mind, I want to ask this of you. Next time you think about the state of the world, I want you to cry. Cry for the children who never returned home from 6th grade, rather than crying for fear of losing your guns. Cry for the plants, the birds, the trees, the bugs, and every living organism threatened by human impact, rather than crying for the downfall of the oil and gas industry. Cry for the parents fleeing violence to come here, who had their children ripped from their arms at the border of the land of the free, rather than crying for the jobs they have come to steal that you would rather not work anyway. Cry for the millions that face prejudice, injustices, cruelty every day in a country that preaches equality, rather than crying out against changes to your consistently comfortable lifestyle. Cry for the women, the daughters, and the granddaughters with hopes, dreams, and bright futures, told that they don't hold rights to their own bodies, rather than crying for a pro-life agenda that does not support sex education, contraception distribution, or foster care funding. Cry for the veterans who selflessly defend their home only to return home to a street corner and a broken mental health institution. Cry for those who can't afford basic health care or food to fill their stomachs. Cry for those who cannot express themselves as their truest and most beautiful self for fear of their own safety. Cry for the living and the dead. Cry for the people just like you, just like your parents, just like your children. And when your tears have hit the ground so hard that life as we know it crumbles, I want you to cheer. Cheer for change. Cheer for the power of humanity, the power of love, empathy, and walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Cheer for growth and every little victory. Things may seem dark right now, but I trust that our humanity will get us to the other side. We will cry, probably a lot, and maybe for a long while. But then we will cheer. Yesterday, I was at the the Penobscot Day Parade, putting a float together for a woman who has finally come forward to say, yes, I'll run for the state legislature as a Democrat. It took us a long time. We're not sure if it's going to be just one person who's now throwing their hat in the ring. Either way, if we have two, we'll have a fabulous Democratic runoff at the next Hancock County Democratic Committee meeting. But right now we have a candidate who was willing to be in the parade yesterday. As we were decorating her car, we were talking about that situation of, well, is she really going to be the candidate? Who knows, right? And spontaneously, I looked at my friend who was helping me decorate the car and I said, you know what? We're not sure about anything these days. All we know is that we know what we have to do today. We have to decorate these two cars and get in the parade in 5 minutes. So that's my mantra. I'm passing it on to you. From here on out, for the rest of our lives, the activist mantra should be, I know what I have to do today. That's all I'm planning on. And with love and support from allies such as you, I'm eagerly anticipating for the rest of my life working on this better, brighter future that we know we can build together. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your space today. And I look forward to walking with you, those of us who will join me down at the Charlie Howard Memorial. And Charlie is in my hip pocket at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. I'll come get this all later.
Yes, we're running long. We know we are. The walk starts at 11:30. Our friends from HEAL are going to be joining us. That's the Health Equity Alliance. But I want to continue with the rest of the service because it's too good to cut anything. So Linda and Rissa?
People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, guided by compassion and the greater good for all, of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. Hum along. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, guided by compassion and the greater good for all, of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, guided by compassion and the greater good for all, of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. People rise up.
Thank you, Linda and Rissa. Now it's time to extinguish our chalice. The words I'd like to share is entitled "The Work We Share" by Krista Tavis. It is our work, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be. Next, we have the benediction. This one is "We Are the One," written by Linda. We are one, excuse me. I've got to work on that reading. Please.
With all life, we are one with the mother, we are one with the light, we are one with the forest and all the sea and sky, we are one with all people, we are one, you and I. We are one with each other, we are one with all life, we are one with the mother, we are one with the light, we are one with the forest and all the sea and sky. We are one with all people. We are one, you and I.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you being here today. Again, the walk down to the bridge will start at approximately 11:30. Our friends from HEAL will be kind of heading that up. We have extra flags. We have a banner to carry down. So please meet us out on the sidewalk. And it is also the food collection Sunday. So if you have brought food, please bring it out onto the sidewalk. We'll get the bins out there for you. grocery cards for sale. Please see Rosemary right after the service. Plenty of time to buy them. Thank you.